Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle, educator, healer, speaker, guide, and fierce advocate for your yes. I help sensitive and successful men and women find, reclaim, and live from their full embodied yes. Through empowering you to understand your energetic hygiene, establish healthy boundaries, and heal your nervous system, you'll be able to create your yes-filled life and move through your days with more freedom, more ease, and more joy. You'll hear inspiring stories of people who found their full-bodied yes, thought leaders who pursued their own dreams and are living life on their terms, and learn new ways to find the courage, joy, ease, and freedom to more fully step into your yes-filled life. Say no to the good so you can say yes to the great. Join me on this journey to discover your yes-filled life. Whether you're looking to break free from the golden handcuffs, start a new business, find your dream job, or simply live with more intention and mindfulness, I've got you covered. Let's explore the possibilities together and make your dreams a reality. Ready? Let's do this. Let's get you to your yes-filled life. Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. This is the first intro I've recorded from my brand new office. I have decided to end my time full-time traveling. I rented a place and boom, just like that, got moved in. I'll tell you more about this in an upcoming episode, but I wanted to give you an update. Last week on the podcast, we had Jenny Scholl, and she was talking about the divine feminine. And today on the podcast, I'm so excited to introduce you to Kevin McNee, where we can dive in and talk about the divine masculine. You are going to love this episode because Kevin spills the tea on what it's like to be a man in this world, how to be a fully embodied man who's also in touch with his emotions. And you're going to want to listen to this, whether you are a man or a woman, and you're probably going to want to share this with your partner. But before we dive into that, I want to invite you to a very special masterclass called Boundaries That Energize You and Bring Balance to Your Life. We'll be live on Wednesday, December 4th, 2024 for 60 minutes. And in that 60 minutes, we'll also include a little breath work drop in. There's a $22 registration fee because I want you to protect this time just for you. So I want you to be able to feel like you own a little bit of this time, which is why we have the $22 ticket. In this masterclass, you are going to discover the confidence and clarity to prioritize yourself without guilt. If you're feeling overwhelmed by constant demands, exhausted from overcommitting, and unsure how to set boundaries that feel really good and prioritize the relationships in your life, this masterclass is for you. You're going to gain the confidence and clarity to learn simple strategies that allow you to say no with ease and yes to the things that you really want to do. You're going to have more bandwidth to say yes to the things you want to say yes to. You're going to be able to reclaim your energy and stop the energy drains that are leaving you feeling depleted. And you're going to walk away with immediate action steps and tools that you can use right away to help you feel more balanced and empowered. This 60-minute live workshop will include guided exercises to help you connect with your energy and practical strategies to set boundaries that stick. This is a live event. However, there is going to be a replay on the sales page. At the time of this recording, it says there is no replay. I have since changed my mind on that. I really do want to offer the replay because I want you to be able to go back and watch it again. It's going to be a limited time replay, but there is going to be a replay. So it is time for you to stop overcommitting, people pleasing, and putting yourself last. And it's time for you to start living in alignment with what matters most because you deserve a life of energy, balance, and joy. And you know what? Your health depends on it. So reserve your spot now for $22 by going to brendawinkle.com/boundaries. This is especially for you if you're a high achieving professional, entrepreneur, or light worker. You're ready to step into your next level, but you want to do it protecting your health and honoring your relationships. And it's for you if you are ready to make a change in how you feel and how you want to show up. Kevin McNee is a dedicated coach, mentor, and facilitator, specializing in guiding men through transformative journeys to heal from within, creating a positive ripple effect that touches every aspect of their lives and those around them. As the founder of the Ripple Effect Men's Movement, Kevin leads with heart centered guidance, providing a safe, open space for men to express vulnerability, embrace authenticity, and confront life's challenges with confidence. Let's dive into this conversation with Kevin McNee. Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me here today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you inviting me and having the opportunity to, connect and, share a little bit about our journeys together.
Yeah. So let's just jump in. I love to ask this question just to kind of kick things off, which is there one thing you either did or did not do that has led you to your yes filled life?
Hmm. The way that shows up for me is jumping off a cliff without a parachute,
Mm.
and that's,
Say
that's
more.
really what it was. It's yeah. Um, I lived the life that I was supposed to live, that meant success, it meant joy, it meant happiness. I had all of the things that I could have ever wished for. The corporate
Mm,
job, making almost $200,000 a year, the big house, the fancy vehicles, the white picket fence, the $1 million family, and
mhm.
realized that, I was still feeling empty inside. And yeah, it got to the point where, the only thing that I knew how to do was try something completely different. And that's where, jumping off the cliff without a parachute showed up. And it showed up in a very wounded and, on the outside looking in, a very toxic way that I had to navigate. And that's really, was a catalyst to my journey to where I'm at now, this yes-filled life.
I love that. So when you're talking about jumping off the cliff without a parachute, you're talking about leaving behind conventionality, leaving behind the picture perfect life for the life that actually is right for you.
100%. And, it was that life that I thought and was taught was everything that I wanted. And when I got there, I was like, now what?
Hmm. I resonate with that. I think that's why I named the podcast Your Yes Filled Life, because I remember a day that my daughter was towards the end of her high school. And I remember waking up in the morning with the recognition that when she's gone, my purpose is going to have to change. And I didn't have any idea what that was going to be like. And I felt it as like heartbreak and deep heaviness in my whole body. Like I felt like I couldn't move. And I was so afraid that there was nothing else for me. And I had, had this career that outwardly was very successful and I was gaining notoriety and it had a national reputation. And inside, I thought, no one knows I'm sitting here alone in my bedroom feeling like I can't move. So your story resonates with me.
Yeah. I mean, I hear in that too is like, so often we outsource our purpose, right? Outsource our purpose to our families, to our careers, to our kids, to things outside of ourselves, our relationships. Um, And then it's like, what happens, when our kids grow up? What happens if our relationship, separates? Or what happens if we lose our job? If that is our sole sense of purpose? Yeah, like it's that again, now what? Right?
And there's so much expansion in just even giving yourself permission to ask the question, now what? So now what? Tell us about where you are. Tell us about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a men's coach. I do group facilitation. I facilitate men's work, group and one-on-one coaching. Um, I help men transform their lives. I was talking to another coach. I listened to a podcast too, and they, instead of saying like what your job title is, speak to what you do.
Mm,
And
mhm.
ultimately I help men transform their lives in whatever way that they need it the most. And, I do that through building deep connections, connecting them, to where they need to go, who they are, as well as, the deep connections one on one, which, is something that as men, a lot of us have never had to be in a safe container where we can be fully authentically ourselves, real and honest and open and do that with another man. And it's there's just something special about that. And that's a little bit about what I do.
That's amazing. And so, a lot of my listeners are women. There are a few men, and shout out to the few men who are loyal listeners, but a lot of these
Yeah, man.
women, yeah, they're partnered with men, or they're partnered with masculine presenting partners. And so the listener's probably saying, "Now wait, what are you doing here?" And I just want to, like, for all the people, let's just take a deep breath, and I'll tell you why I'm bringing Kevin here. I'm bringing Kevin here because it's important for all of us, no matter how we identify as men or women, to understand our divine masculine, to understand how the masculine energy presents, and then to understand the needs and desires of men so that we can more easily communicate with our friends, colleagues, partners, if we're partnered with men. Because right now, there's so much division in our world that if we can heal the division between the masculine and the feminine, that is going to go a long way toward healing other wounds.
That is just a beautiful truth, right? Even to think about that is like, man, that's the direction that the world needs to go. And it's about harmonizing the masculine and the feminine. And this is one of the things that I hear a lot in the work that I do and working with men and working with the masculine and feminine dynamics and energies is finding that balance between the masculine and finding that balance between the feminine. But it's really about harmonizing the two. And we all have both of those energies within us.
Mhm,
It's not about, one or the other. It's about navigating that dance and being able to, you know, call on that feminine within us when it's necessary, that creation, that softness, that sensitivity, that receptive energy. But also when we need to, that direction, that structure, that hard work, the all of that, the structure of the masculine,
mhm, the
when
action
when
part.
it's necessary. The action. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And, I wanna go back to something that you said about creating a space for men to have connection. And I think that's really missing, is that we have a culture that glorifies independence to a point where it's isolation. And so what is it like for men when they don't have community? What are men feeling? What do they go through?
It's very much like what we live in society today is, taking it all on, right?
Mhm.
Feeling like we have to have it all together. If we don't know it all, if we can't do everything, if we can't figure things out on our own, then we're not enough. We're not worthy.
Mm.
We're seen as less than. Look at all these other guys that have their masks on of having it all together. Like
Mhm.
they aren't showing, emotion. They aren't showing that they're afraid. They aren't showing that they're struggling because they've been taught that it's not okay to do that. Or there's this unconscious belief that, you know, to have it all, nobody, as long as you don't show that you're struggling, it's not going to be there.
Mhm.
And it's just not true. So, what it's created is this isolation in trying to figure it all out ourselves. Yet, we need help from everyone. And I would venture to say most of the men that are listening to this podcast, but the men in the women's lives who are listening to this podcast, I would venture to say that every single one of those men would reach out their hand to help someone else if they needed it and give them the
Mhm.
shirt off their back because that is so much of what all of us as a society are like. But to ask for that help and then to receive it is
Mhm.
just like it's so foreign. It's like, I can't do that. I'm not
Mhm.
enough. Like
Mm.
all of these thoughts, these feelings, these emotions, these wounds that show up around, being not enough. And that's a big reason why I believe, even from my own experience, but why, so many men are in isolation trying to figure it all out themselves.
Yeah. And so Kevin and I met in a speaking program, and he was talking about the divine masculine. And so, Kevin, when you and I had the idea, oh my gosh, we need to record a podcast episode, we were thinking that it might be nice if the female listeners invite men they know to listen to this episode. Um, and then also for the women that are listening, invitation to ask any questions. And I'll share Kevin's social contact information in the show notes, but tag us both and ask us any questions that you might have, either for
Mhm.
yourself, like how you navigate communicating with the men in your lives, or any other question. Tag us and ask your questions, because we are wanting to serve. We're wanting to fill this gap. And so if a woman is listening and she has a man in her life, whether it's a father, brother, partner, and she sees him struggling, she sees that he's really stressed out, he's internalizing things. What are some things that she can say or do that might make him feel safe enough to reach out for help, where he wouldn't feel like I'm not enough?
The first thing that comes up for me is acknowledging what comes up within them first. That awareness is like is seeing my partner, the man in my life suffering or struggling. What's coming up in me? Is there fear? Is there insecurity? Do I not feel safe with him? Just recognizing that. And when you are aware and acknowledge and accept that, there's a that's how you can accept where he's at and acknowledge where he's at. Because one of the biggest things is, as a man, I don't want to be told what to do,
Mhm.
right? For me to
Women don't
want
like
to
that either.
I know women don't like that either. Nobody does. So it's like, if it's like, hey, I see you're struggling, you need to go do this. Well,
Mm.
that's the last thing that's going to encourage him to want to go seek help. But knowing that you accept whatever it is that's coming, for yourself, but also for him, and acknowledge that I see that you're struggling, or I see that you're hurting, or that you're afraid. That's okay. Let's go figure out something on how we're going to do that. Like, what do you need? What do you need from me? How can I be there for you the way that you need it the most? Asking those types of questions, creating that safe space, that's the divine feminine, that, like, let me be the protector, right? And
Mhm.
create this safe space for you to be able to, like, open up and be like, this is what I need, or I'm not sure what I need. And now you can navigate that and find that together.
I love that you mention bringing in the divine feminine, bringing in the receptivity, and meeting somebody with deep empathy and compassion, but staying centered in your own beingness, where it's not a collapse in fear or worry. It's just, I see that you're hurting, and how can I help? Creating space. That's so good.
Yeah, and that it's okay, right? It's okay for you to show up with whatever you have. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. One of the biggest things that, as a society, but I'm just going to speak to men, is one of the biggest fears that we have is abandonment and rejection,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
Everything that we're doing is to try and make sure that we're not left, that we're not rejected, we're not abandoned, we're not judged, we're not ridiculed. So
mm,
everything that we do, the reason why we're showing up the way that we are and trying to have it all together is because if we show that we're struggling, that we're suffering, that we're afraid, that we don't have it all together, that we're going to be left because we're not good enough. So we're just going to, like, cover that up with, like, you know, keeping it all together and showing
mhm,
up and not showing emotion. But it's like, emotions are universal. Every single one of them, us, feels them, right?
mhm.
It's just, it's never been taught to be okay to show them all.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so for the men out there that are listening, this is gonna be a paradigm shift for them too, if they begin to admit that something hurts or that something is feeling stressful. What are some safe first steps for the man who's always held it inside, the man who's always tried to do it all? What are some safe things that he might be able to try to communicate either to his partner or to someone else that he's seeking support from to ask for help?
Mhm. The first thing that comes up for me is know that you're not alone, right? And that is the number one thing. Like the person who's right next to you at the restaurant or on the bus or in the vehicle, or just take a look around. Every single one of those people are going through something in their life as well,
Mhm,
whether it's a struggle, whether they're suffering, whether they're grieving a loss, whatever that looks like. Every single one of them is going through something in their life. So to think that you're alone with what you're feeling and what you're going through is the biggest misconception and the lie that we tell ourselves,
mm,
right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
that is the most important thing, is like, we're not alone.
Yeah.
The next thing is there is support out there. It just takes it takes a little bit of work and effort to go and seek that. And the number one thing that I would suggest to all men and women who have men in their lives, encourage your men to find a men's group. There
Mm,
are
mhm,
men out there. We're out here, we're having real conversations. I created a men's group 4 years ago. It's transformed not only my life, but the almost 560 men that are a part of this group
mm,
now, that
mm,
that just have a space to like go and be heard, to be seen, to be witnessed, to be actually received by other men. That's a whole nother level. That is a frequency that not many of us have been even shown that it's okay, or that it's safe,
mhm,
or that we're allowed to show up and be honest and real and raw with other men, because we've been judged, or we've been bullied, or we've been hurt by men in the past, in whatever way that looks like. But
mhm.
no, there's groups out there.
Yeah, I love this. And one of the things that you embody for me is maintaining connection with the divine masculine as you access your emotionality. And one of the things that I see very commonly is like a pendulum swing really far over into the emotionality with men, and where they can become very, very feminine, almost with feminine mannerisms and feminine dress. And I see that a lot in the spiritual communities, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not making it bad or wrong. If that's who you choose to be, more power to you. However, you do such a beautiful job of embodying the masculinity with access to the emotionality. I just want to recognize that. And I know that that has to have been something that you cultivated over time. Would you be willing to talk about how that came to be?
Mhm. I'll even share that. I would consider myself more feminine than masculine. For
Mm,
the better part of my life, I always really connected well with women, and I enjoyed being around their company, the conversations, and even still, like, I have a really, I find it easy to connect with women, and I feel comfortable and secure and safe in communicating with women. And I don't have, I've sharing my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, actually, is a comfort for me, especially around the feminine. So I've had to really work on, like, embodying more of the masculine, right?
mm,
I worked
mhm.
in I worked in masculine roles, right? I was in oil and gas. I was a golf pro before that, but I moved into oil and gas, which was like, very, very much like uber masculine, rough, and just there was so much energy around, like, raw and rugged and, like, get shit done and work hard. And, if you're not gonna do it right, then get the fuck out of the way, right? Like, I'll
Mhm,
do it
mhm,
myself. And there was a lot of that. And I learned to take that on and became quite, pretty good at that. But
mhm.
it was like a shell or a mask or a cover up of who I was in my heart, which was more of like a softer and more connected. And I really liked that energy. So it was a little bit confusing, right?
Yeah.
So as I started to kind of like, go through my own journey of like looking in and asking those questions, just like, why am I being like this? Why am I saying this? Why am I doing this? Why am I like the way that I am? And started to understand that, it was a lot of the wounds that I had around, the masculine and the feminine, and, my mother and my father, that resulted in how I showed up,
Mhm,
right? So, the being more comfortable and confident, you know, communicating with women, but also in in a way where it was like validation seeking. It was
mm,
like trying to fill that void because I wasn't secure and confident in myself. Being masculine, and there's a saying that says the masculine needs nothing. The masculine is enough. It's that king energy. The masculine embodies itself. It actually needs nothing. So it's, holding that frame in itself. So if there's something missing, it's going to take some work around, like, can I be by myself? Am I
mm,
secure enough to like speak my truth, to stand up for myself, to, go and do things on my own? If not, then that was the direction that I needed to look into, because I used to seek comfort in, women and attention from women, and, you
mhm,
know, recognizing that it was, a wound that I had around my mother. So
mhm,
I don't know if that
mhm.
answered the question specifically, but, it's definitely something that I recognize in myself.
I love this. And I love the layers that every single person has, like the golf pro and the working in oil and gas. There's just so many layers of humanity. It's amazing. And when you were talking about the energy of the oil and gas and working in that, like get shit done and all of this, it made me think about how many women are functioning in a distorted masculine energy in the workplace, especially CEOs and the boss babe kind of thing where there's like so much effort and there's so much force and masculinity and not thinking about the flow or not thinking about receptivity. And I'm wondering what effect does being in the world like that have on men when women are in their distorted masculine and they're not accessing the gifted masculine that every single one of us has?
Mhm. That's a really good question. And it's the first thing, the my what comes up for me is confusion, right?
Say
Men
more.
men are supposed to men are supposed to show up in this way, right? We're
Mhm,
supposed to, quote unquote, we're supposed to be the leaders. We're supposed to be the providers. We're supposed to be the ones that, that go and provide and put food on the table, roof over the head, right? Support our families. That's supposed to be what the masculine does. So when there's, females, women, the feminine that are in these types of roles, and they're showing up in this way where they're the ones that are taking the lead. They're the ones that are, giving the directions, and they're the ones that are like taking action. It's like, I thought that was my role as the
mm,
masculine. I thought that was supposed to be me. Now I'm witnessing this. Or maybe as a man you've attracted a partner like that. I did, 2 times in a row, where like recognizing that I was like, I'm confused, like I'm supposed to be the leader, I'm
mhm,
supposed to be the provider, but I'm the one that's being told what to do or controlled or led. And
mm,
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do now. So it's like, I guess I'll just do what I'm told, because, happy wife, happy life. That was kind of one of the sayings that I was taught as a kid, right? Or
mhm,
the,
mhm.
this, well, you know what it's like being married. it's, this is how it's supposed to be. Just listen to your wife, make sure that she's happy. But it's like the more that I did, and the more that others, husbands will do, the more that it just actually creates this dynamic of separation, because there's there's an off balance of the polarities, right? The
Mhm.
feminine isn't supposed to be masculine, and the masculine isn't supposed to be feminine. When we're in our divine masculine and feminine in our embodied states, there's a polarity there that creates a safety, a security, a feeling of like deep connection, a magnetism, sexually,
Mhm.
intimately, emotionally, and all the ways. And when that's off, we're seeing what we see in society today. These, like you hear the saying, it's like these boss babes, or the masculine female CEOs that, they're the ones that are taking the lead because the men haven't shown up in their lives the way that they're meant to.
Mhm. Well, yes, perhaps, and perhaps that with this distorted masculine energy brought forth by women, it, um, I don't want to say incapacitates, but it definitely disincentivizes a man showing up in his divine masculine if all those roles are being filled. And I can think back for myself in my own romantic partnerships. Um, I was married for a long time and that didn't work out. And so then I decided I was going to course correct and I was going to do it all different. And so I went way too far on the feminine side and let go of a lot of decision making. And then I thought, well, that must be the problem. So then I had the pendulum swing all the way the other way. And then I was in this relationship where I was taking care of everything and I was exhausted. And so as you're saying this, I'm recognizing that in myself, it's very likely that I caused some of that. There it might have been innate in those people to have a leaning towards whatever, but I'm also recognizing I caused some of that with my distorted feminine being like needy and in a collapse, and then my distorted masculine by trying to control everything.
Or it's and that's it's just a natural, it's a kind of like a natural progression, right? One extreme to the other, there's even in that, there's power, right?
Mhm,
You
mhm,
went from that feminine, but unlike the maybe the codependent and the needy side, to that uber masculine, and now you got to see both sides of that. Now it's just a
mhm.
matter of like finding that center, and that's really the power of transformation. Like,
That's
if
right.
if I'm this way and I opposite shift this way, now I just need to find the happy medium because I've navigated both sides. Yeah, it's just a matter of like finding that center.
That's right. That's right. So I'm wondering, like for me, I have signs in my body that I'm doing one or the other. So if I'm in a distortion, I'll notice like a distorted feminine, for example, where I'm needy in a collapse, a victim kind of thing. I notice that my shoulders roll in, that my spine is not as straight. If I'm in a distortion where I'm in masculine energy, I notice that I talk fast. I'm kind of demanding. I don't like admitting that, but I'm kind of demanding and things have to happen like yesterday. And then I notice that there's anxiety in my system when I'm in the distorted masculine because there's just so much to do. And so I find that for me, if I'm in a neutral body feeling state, neutral and expansive, that's when I'm in the sweet spot of the balance where I can access the divine feminine and also allow the masculine to come through so I can get things done, but there's more balance. Does it hit your system in a particular way when you're on one side or the other?
I can definitely recognize when my wounded feminine shows up. It's the fear, it's the insecurity, it's the wounding, and disconnectedness around, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or like this neediness where it's, um I'm afraid of being abandoned, afraid of
Mm,
being rejected. So it's like,
mhm,
I'm doing everything that I can to try and get myself out of this state, And that's what I've recognized, in the past, and even still it shows up where I'm like, "Oh, I recognize this feeling of fear
Mm,
right within me." And it's a visceral feeling in my gut going, that creates these stories, right? I'm gonna be left, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not gonna be seen, I'm not being heard. It's, projection,
mhm,
but really coming back to what's the truth, right? It's not it's a story that I'm creating. Right?
mhm,
What is the feeling? Where is it coming from? Am I projecting something into looking at a future projection and feeling that right now? And that's a big part of like where the anxiousness comes in. And I don't know if you've done work around attachment theory, but
mhm,
attachment is huge. It may be the biggest, I'm gonna say, modality to be able to work through that creates, this connection, this healing, this, being able to embody the masculine and feminine, healing those attachment wounds and understanding them and finding out why they show up and where they're coming from and how to get through to the other side of them and navigate them as a whole. So, just yeah, just tuning into what that feels like, where it's
mhm.
coming from, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's a powerful place.
Yeah. So what Kevin is naming is the attachment theory, meaning avoidantly attached or anxiously attached or securely attached. And it's very common for someone who has an anxious attachment to partner with someone who has an avoidant attachment. And then they create a cycle where one triggers the other. And until we really dig in deep to those triggers and understand what they are and heal them, it's difficult for us to come into that secure attachment. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I love that you named that because that was the attachment was absolutely the root of all of my distortions. Either I was avoidantly attached or I was anxiously attached.
Yeah. And there's also the disorganized or fearful avoidant attachment style, right?
Mhm.
Which is
Mhm.
which is a combination of both,
Right.
right? Which is really can be really confusing. And what I recognize and what I just learned, I actually just got back from Denver, working with a fellow named Dewey Freeman, and he came up with the Freeman attachment model. And he's had over 80,000 direct contact hours in therapy working with.
80,000. Whoa.
Yes. Yeah, so the program that I went through, the workshop, was with him and Traver Boehm, and Traver created the Man Uncivilized, the Uncivilized Nation, and wrote the book Man Uncivilized. And it was incredible. But that whole workshop really spoke to attachment and how it's our lack of attachment as children, as even as far back as in utero, the attachment or lack of it that we had with our parents, our caregivers, the people in our lives affects every aspect of how we show up. And it's really about going back to, that those attachment styles and creating contact and connection and openings for connection that help us start that healing process within ourselves. So as for those that are listening, where do you have a space where you can go and you can just like show up fully,
Mhm.
authentically? Like, I'm scared, I'm angry, I'm full of rage, like I can't keep this. Do you have a space where you can show up and that can be fully received and accepted? And if not, I'm going to invite you to find a space where you can do that, or reach out to Brenda, reach out to myself, and we can guide you through our own practices, or through our communities as well, to show you what it's like to have a space like that and just watch your life transform.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. 100%. Um, Finding secure attachment for me came in the form of business masterminds, which is a really interesting place. It was unexpected. I wasn't looking for that. I was looking just for business help and I wanted a place to belong. And what I didn't know is I was repatterning my nervous system with all of the safe relationships that I was creating until my nervous system was like, "Oh, this is normal. This is what we want." And it was, fairly recently and I wouldn't have identified as having attachment issues. Oh, that's not true. I would have. but I would have called it like romantic problems. Um,
Of course. Yeah.
but yeah, so there are places out there that you can get support.
Yeah. And like you know, you brought it up as the business mastermind, right? Um, there's a safe place to show that you show up fully as it's like, hey, I'm struggling in my business. You know, I don't have enough clients. I'm not making enough money. I can't pay my taxes. I can't, you know, all of this stuff that's showing up. But it's like you being able to be safe enough to like open up and share that with other people that understand what you're talking about, can support you through that, or even just like listen to you and hear you and see you and,
Mhm.
you know, accept that. That's
Yeah,
what so many of us need. Like
that's
just
right.
being seen, heard, and understood is like, oh, like,
Yeah, it's
oh, I
like
feel like
medicine.
I'm like, yeah, it's medicine. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so good. So tell us more about how people can find you, how people can work with you, and all the things.
All the things. Okay. I'm on Instagram, creating the ripple is my Instagram handle. Kevin McNee, McNee is my name on Facebook. I have a community called the Better Man Community on Facebook. It's a private free Facebook group where we gather every day. We have prompts for guys to, you know, connect on and share their wisdom, share their gifts. Every single one of us has our own wisdom and gifts to share with the world. We need it.
Mhm,
It's, you know, there's things that have supported you on your journey, whether it's a book, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a teacher, a coach, a mentor, whatever that looks like. Bring that to the group. Share, just share what you've been through, a podcast, a song, a quote, whatever that is. You know, what's helped you will help someone else. And that's how we create a collective ripple effect of healing and support and growth and you know community throughout the world. And that's really what this is all about. You know, that's the Better Man community. And then we also have what's called the inner circle inside of that, which is a subscription membership based group where we have men connecting every single day. We have weekly online calls on Zoom. Um, one's for breath work, one is for freedom around business, finances, just overall freedom in your life. There's the mentor calls where we have special guest speakers, coaches, leaders, business owners, you know, experts coming in to speak to their, you know, to their expertise. And then there's the truth call, which is the one that facilitate. And it's all about like what's true for you right now. And, you know, let's open up and let's like do this deeper work and connecting, you know, with what's going on and be able to share that and be, you know, seen, held, and heard in a container with men that, you know, that are there to do this deeper work as well. And it's just an incredible container. And I will speak to this till my final day that there's nothing like men supporting other men, and until you've experienced that you won't understand what it feels like. And I've, you know, I've recently had my father join in into one of the circles. You know, my mom just passed away on October 17th, and he joined our circle that I facilitated, you know, a few days after. It was his first time, it was his first night going to be home on his
mhm,
own,
mhm,
and he joined, and every single one of the men in there were just like so emotional, and they were like, I'm going to reconnect with my dad. I'm going to invite him. Why isn't my dad here? Why isn't my family here? And you know, even just to connect with my father on that level, and him seeing that, he's like, you know, we're actually helping people change their own lives just by showing up.
mhm. That's right.
And
I'm
it's such a
sorry for your
powerful piece.
loss.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
You know, we were talking before we hit record. My dad died on August 16th, and we were in conversations at that time. In fact, I had to reschedule a couple things. And we were talking about the myth that you have to be all the way through something before you can show up and do the work. And, you know, there's sometimes this idea that we get in our heads that we have to be perfect before we can show up to do the next thing, that we have to be like evolved to a certain level, or we have to be healed, or we have to be this thing. And, you know, Kevin and I are here today, both having endured a deep loss really recently, and we're still showing up to do the work. We still have healing to do, and we're here doing the work, which is to say that you can do this work too.
Mm. And, something with that too is like, I'll even share, like, I felt guilty and I felt some shame around, showing up and just like living my life. Like, how am I supposed to just like go forward and live my life when like
Mhm.
maybe am I supposed to shut my life down and just like grieve and be sad and, sit through that? Like, how am I supposed to go forward when the person that brought me into this earth is gone?
Mhm.
But realizing that she would never want me to sit back and hold back on my life, right? So
Mhm.
allowing myself to feel it when it comes up, to process it when it comes up, to let it flow when it comes up, like the grief, the sadness, the pain, but also be allowed to be joyful and happy and excited and, come and show up and have conversations like this and go traveling and go and have joy and fun and laughter and play and not feel guilty for it because life does go on and it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that it's not going to show up and kick us in the ass once in a while, but it doesn't mean that we have to stop doing what we're doing and wait for the perfect time because there's no the only there is a perfect time and it just means right now.
That's
Right?
right.
It's like,
That's right.
just do it and get out there and be perfectly imperfect. And,
Mhm.
as you show up and all the mistakes that you make are just lessons that you learn for the next go round. And, I make mistakes day in and day out every single day. It's just, the only reason that they're failures or considered failures or even mistakes is if I don't change them. And
That's right. Or if you stop.
I'm all about change. Yeah, if you stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you stop. Yeah, I love that you say accessing joy and fun and play and travel and doing the things that make us feel alive is part of the process. It really is part of the process because for me, I don't know how this fits for you, but or feels for you, but for me, if I was to just sit in the grief, I don't feel like I would be doing I don't feel like I would be honoring my dad's life. Because one of the things he kept saying over and over and over was, I've had such a good life. And he has this interesting life and all these things that he did and all these people that he met. And if I was just to sit at home and wait until it doesn't hurt, I would be honoring him.
No, absolutely. It's it's interesting. Is a thought that comes up for me is like, is people waiting to feel better before they start going to exercise, or
That's right.
they wait till they get in, that they lose some weight before they go to the gym. It's like, mm, that's where you do that, right? You know what I mean? It's
I
like,
do.
so
Like, I can't
it's
go to yoga. I'm not flexible enough. No, that's not how that works. It's the opposite.
yeah, that's how you build flexibility is by going to yoga. Yeah, it's an interesting thought process. And, as humans, we tend to hold ourselves back for all of the
Mhm,
reasons. And it's just being aware of those and acknowledging those and going like, okay, this is what I want.
mhm,
This is the steps to get there, but this is what I'm not doing. Having that awareness is so powerful because it's like now you know the steps that you need to take to get there.
mhm.
Why am I not doing those?
That's right.
Right.
Why am I not doing that?
And, like I say this all the time to clients very often is like, awareness is the most powerful thing that we can have, but it's also can be very painful because it's really difficult to be aware of all the things that, that are going to get us to the next level. We know what we're supposed to do to make us feel better, yet we're not doing those and then addressing why that is. And I'm going to say one of the biggest things that that is uh that is an issue for us men, but as people in general, is we're trying to do it all alone.
Absolutely. I say that to my clients too. I say it a little bit differently, but I say awareness is the first step. It doesn't mean you have to take an action right away, but just being aware of what is actually going on is so profound. And to your point, you don't have to do it alone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, state it to create it. As a friend of mine, Tyson always says, he said, state it to create it. So putting it out there like, hey, you want to stop drinking? Announce that you want to stop drinking. There will be people out there that will help hold you accountable, right?
So, Kevin, what would you announce? If you were going to state it to create it, what would you say?
Hmm. I've been wanting to start a podcast for a long time, like probably 3 years, and I haven't because of all the reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna start a podcast.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That is juicy. Let us know when you start it, and I'll put the link in this episode.
Okay. I even have the name of it and everything. It's on Spotify. I just haven't recorded anything yet. So it's right there. But yeah, it's something that I've always wanted to do. I love these conversations. I love just like organically going with the flow and yeah, it's something that I love to do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking time to be here today. It means a lot to have you here.
It means a lot to be invited, and I love your energy, your voice, just that smile of yours. It's infectious. So, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Wasn't that a great conversation? I'm so grateful that Kevin was willing to share with us so vulnerably. One of the things that really stood out to me was when Kevin was talking about the fear of being rejected. And, I think that's such a common fear for so many of us. And when we come back to our center and we make decisions from our heart, we can remember that we are each humans and we each have the need to be loved and accepted. You are welcome to join Kevin and I live on Instagram on Wednesday, November 27th at 9 a.m. Pacific. And if you happen to miss us live on that date, I'll be posting it on my profile. And so you can go find that at Brenda Winkle. And Kevin is on Instagram at Creating the Ripple. So go check out that conversation. And and a reminder about the Boundaries Masterclass that goes live Wednesday, December 4th. This is going to be a beautiful chance for you to take an hour to yourself to learn how you can center your health, your relationships at the forefront of any boundaries so that you can still make sure you can take care of yourself, prioritizing your own wants, needs, and desires without the guilt while you do the things that are important to you for the people that you love. So register at brendawinkle.com/boundaries. And remember that despite what the sales page says, there is going to be a replay. And this link, brendawinkle.com/boundaries, is where you'll be able to purchase the replay after the live masterclass is complete. Thank you so much for listening to Your Yes Filled Life. If you liked this episode, would you please consider giving it a rating? And if you're on Apple Podcasts and you can give it a review, it is so incredibly helpful. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this episode with someone you care about. Thank you so much for being here. Bye for now. Until next time.